Can I know what profession you're doing or what is your
Um, I
skills?
I worked in finance,
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, for like 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mostly in the East Coast?
yeah, just in New Jersey.
Oh, specifically in New Jersey.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And have you traveled a lot? Less?
Just
Or-
like in general.
Yeah, general also.
No, no,
No?
I have not traveled a lot. I've been to Bermuda, I've been to Scotland,
Oh, okay.
Canada, and that's about
Oh,
it.
okay. I
Yeah,
see.
I'm actually, honestly, like if I'm going to be honest, like
Yeah,
my anxiety kind of limited me, like
I
really a
see.
lot. Like there was like a lot of opportunity with work to travel to go to like
Okay.
Puerto Rico or go to.
Yeah.
We had operations in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and my anxiety was always like so extreme that I would just decline. I'd be like, no, I'm not going. But
Okay.
the thing is, my work was so good that I could still kind of advance in my career, even with like not doing what the company wanted me to do. So
Okay.
it's just something that's kind of haunted me like for a very long time. So like I said, I grew up kind of in a normal childhood. And as I progressed, as I got to be a teenager, and through college and through, I went to college in Pennsylvania
Mm.
at Villanova University. And I started working in finance. And actually, through that whole time period, I always had something that was like haunting me. Like I always had um, a bit of anxiety when I didn't really understand why. And it kind of carried with me through childhood, through teen years, through college, through my working years. And it's something that I was always kind of searching for an answer as to why, but I actually didn't even really understand that I had a problem. I just thought that this is kind of the way that I was, that this anxious state of mind where my mind would never stop um, chattering. Really, it had like this inner conversation that I've had my entire life was just something that I took as completely normal for every person. That voice that you have in your head that keeps doubting everything, that keeps questioning, um, like, am I doing the right thing, or is something going to go wrong if I do something the wrong way? Am I
Mm.
going to be judged? Like I had a lot of fear of embarrassing myself, and I didn't understand why. I never even really thought about it. It's just I just really just tried to take it like day by day and almost like survive with it. Like I had a lot of experiences in college where I can actually remember one time it was a religious class. The professor asked each person like each day, for like a few people to summarize like what they had to read um, the night before, and then give a presentation that the next day on what you read. I actually dropped the class like the second that he called on me and said that I needed to give that presentation. And
Okay.
I ended up, it was after drop ad. I had to go to like the dean of like the school to get like permission to get dropped. And I did all of that just to
Mm.
get out of like public speaking. Like public speaking it was my nightmare.
Okay. Mm.
And that also public speaking, like with work, like they would ask me to travel to go
Yeah.
like work with other departments in different parts of the country. And I refused to go. Like I had meetings in our home office where I was supposed to give presentations and I would refuse, and they would give it to somebody else. Even though I did all the work behind
Mm.
the information, somebody else would be the presenter of it. So it was like that was my life. That was like the anxiety like riddled existence that I had.
Okay.
I mean, it was still a good life. Like I still was able to enjoy myself, but I always had that overriding like sense of that there was something wrong. Like, and I couldn't figure it out. So as I got older, I ended up getting married in my 30s, and I inherited two stepsons.
Hmm.
And what ended up happening is my older stepson, when he was 13, started to have an addiction problem. And for somebody that has anxiety and tries to like force everything to be in order, to be in control, to not have any issues, that was really a hard thing for me to deal with. Like it was something that was completely out of my control. And then I tried to control it, and it just made my anxiety even worse. So what ended up happening was it just kept getting worse and worse. Like every time that phone would ring, like there would be some type of issue. He would end up in different facilities and emergency rooms. Honestly, I probably dropped the ball a little bit with this because my wife was the one that ended up being the one who was in the emergency rooms with him, was at the facilities with him. I probably had too much anxiety to even be able to help in that situation. And I probably even added to the difficulty of the situation by being so anxious about everything. So it's not one of the best times of my life. But what ended up happening is this period of time where the anxiety grew to such an extreme, it was like almost forcing me to come to some type of answer of why do I feel this way? Like what is the basis of this? Because it's becoming like unbearable. Like I cannot live like this anymore. And actually I can remember the exact moment when, if you want to talk about awakening, I can actually say that there was one moment that I can remember, and I got a phone call from my wife, and Mark, my stepson, who had all these issues, got diagnosed with schizophrenia. So at that point, there was like this realization that I can't fix him. Like this is not something that he's not going to get over this addiction problem. This is something that he's suffering with, and he can't do anything about it. It's not like his choice to be, addicted to something. This is him trying to like find an escape from his schizophrenic like mind, really. And it was almost like, I don't know if you know, like pinball, you can kind of tilt the machine. I had a feeling at that moment that something tilted in my mind. And there was like this realization that there's nothing here for me to control. There's nobody here who can control this. This is just life that's moving. And I can't do anything to change it. I have to accept it. And if I accept it and there's nobody here to control it, I'm free of it. Like I had like that realization. And at that moment is kind of when I started to really get into the spiritual aspect of life. Kind of started meditating, started taking time to sit. Like I had tried to meditate before, and I just didn't get it. Like I didn't really have any understanding of like what it meant. Like I would sit, and a lot of people sit with meditation and they're just like, yeah, my mind is just moving. What am I supposed to do here? There's just, you have no direction. Like you don't know what to do. So I had a lot of like false starts like that. I read a few books before that on Zen, and I just didn't really understand it either. But something, like I said, something switched at that point in time, and it was like the light went on, and then I would just start meditating and getting quieter, and I started listening to YouTube, Adyashanti, Shunryu Suzuki, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Muji, Alan Watts. I wasn't working at the time, so I had a lot of time to meditate, to listen to these talks, and everything just started to come together and started to make sense. So that's kind of how I went from, the young kid that like I was always that shy kid when I was really young, the kid that hid behind his mother. Like that's who okay. that's who I was. So that's where I started. And then I'll say one more thing about Mark. Um, Unfortunately, Mark passed away from an overdose. So it was really a difficult time. So that was, he's actually kind of like who my guru was, really, if I can say any person was, because he taught me to accept life the way that it is. And if you really understand what spirituality is, it's just acceptance of what's here, because this moment here is truth. Like, this is it. So you don't want life to be different. You can just accept it the way that it is. And that's how you free yourself from suffering. So, I guess that's kind of the story of where I'm at now.
Okay, thanks. Sad to hear about your stepson.
Thank you.
Sorry, rest in peace. Okay. When did this happen, William? Like, you got the phone call and then you understood, or you had this realization that you cannot, like, you have to accept life and it is always. So which year was this, or how many years ago was this?
It was in 2016, so about 5 years ago.
Okay. 2016, it's only 5 years. Okay. But then how much of spiritual search or meditation and Zen did you read before that year?
Not that much. There was one book by Charlotte Joko Beck.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the name of the book,
No,
but I read
okay.
that book. I read that book several times.
I see.
And
Okay.
it made like a little bit of sense to me as I read it. And
Yeah.
I also tried to read Shunryu Suzuki's Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Okay.
But that was like over my head before my awakening. So
Okay.
there was something that was looking for something, but there was not an understanding of how to come to any type of understanding of it. So it was like kind of grasping at it's probably grasping at something to save me from myself, because I was burdened with myself so heavily that I needed an escape out of it. So something was drawing me towards Zen.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking here is, William, it's because, see, at least in the East, people say that to get enlightened or to understand yourself, you have to meditate for decades and maybe be a monk and follow this arduous, painful path of discipline and meditation and celibacy and simplicity, and that is what I've heard. Like, being,
Yeah.
even we all know the life of Buddha, right? He was a
Mm-hmm.
princess. He left everything for like 8-9 years. He was without food, or eating once in a week or once in a month or once in a day. He really worked hard, and then at the end is what he realized, right? So that's what I've heard most of the time. But in your case, you are saying that you did not have, I mean, you had problems personally, right? I mean, whatever the fears and the stress and your anxiety you had, but then you did not follow, decades of arduous path of hard working and meditations and techniques of meditation and all those things, right? Is that right? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
different approach.
I mean, I did do the work after that initial awakening, but it was more of like in a concentrated, like I said, I wasn't working at the time. So I would spend the day, every day, listening to
Okay.
these talks.
Okay.
And doing meditation at this, maybe it could have been like 2 or 3 hours per day, every day, and listening to these talks for maybe 3 or 4 hours every day.
Okay.
After that point in time. And it was a consistent, like, there's one thing about me is I'm able to be consistent. Like, if I know that I'm going to do something, I will do it, like, every day without fail. Like, I am there. Like,
Right.
and actually, I think I get that from my dad. Like, my dad,
Yeah.
like, you ask him to do something, there's not even a question, it's going to get done. Like, if he has to stay somewhere for 48 hours straight to do something, he will do it, like, until he falls over.
Yeah.
So I've always had that, like, drive or like will to make sure that I do what I intend to do. Like I'm going to keep my word that I'm going to do this. So it's something that I stayed with. Like I stayed with it, and it was for years. It was for a number of years that I did that.
Hmm.
So you can say that I kind of concentrated the practice into like a shorter number of years because I wasn't working and I had the opportunity to do that.
Okay. But William, you said your enlightenment, I mean, okay, you had that insight in 2016. So do you call that as a insight which triggered your search of reading Muji and JK and Adyashanti and all those people, and then you got this enlightenment? Or do you think that 2016 is what everything was clear? Or is it 2016 you
Now,
had this? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, 2016 is when I had the awakening moment, but I would not consider like that to completely understand what truth is. Like that's
Okay.
more of what evolved over the next 5 years. Like I didn't instantaneously
Yeah.
like
Okay.
know everything at that point in time, but I
Okay.
did know that what I was thinking that I was wrong. Like I knew that this anxiety type of person who needs to control everything is not actually what the reality of who I am is. But I can consider it something like a pendulum. Like it kept swinging back and forth. Like I would be in the person
Yeah.
and then understand kind of what presence is. The more I listened to the YouTube videos, the more I would understand, oh, what is this presence? What is this awareness? Like I didn't instantaneously like understand what awareness is when I had that
Okay.
awakening moment. I
Okay.
didn't know.
Okay.
But the more that I sat in meditation, the quieter actually, like when I sat in meditation, my mind was very busy when I initially first sat, like completely like inner dialogue, nonstop, never stopping. And the
Right.
more that I sat, like I can remember, I would start to have gaps. Like
Hmm.
I would have a gap of silence. And then those gaps would start getting bigger and bigger. And then eventually my mind just would become quiet. Like I would sit and just be quiet. I mean, I did have a couple um, initial things that happened where like I started to feel the bliss of meditation. And then I would
Hmm.
try to sit to try to like bring the bliss up in my meditation. That was like my expectation to try to get to the bliss. Like,
Yeah.
it was just an evolvement to understand that that was just another experience and nothing to really try to hold on to. There's nothing to grasp, nothing to hold on to. And it was more of a letting go of everything in the meditation. So the more I let go, the more I became quiet, the more I understood what the awareness was.
Hmm.
And I just continued to listen to all these different gurus and read books. And it seemed like everything that I needed to hear would just
Yeah.
appear to me at that exact time that I needed to hear it. And that was the approach that I actually took towards my practice was I'm open to whatever truth is going to show me. I have complete trust that whatever I need is going to be given to me and revealed to me. And I had no idea of being in control whatsoever. So it was like a complete 180 from my prior life where
Yeah.
the anxious mind was trying to control the entire process of everything that I was doing. Like
Okay.
honestly, if I had like a plan, like to do something, and then somebody would call me like an hour before the plan and like say that they were going to change it, like it would
Yeah.
completely throw me off. Like
Hmm.
I would be like completely bent out of shape, like for no reason
Right. Right.
whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay.
So now I got to the point where I'm completely open to whatever's going to show up, and I understand that that's exactly what like is being provided to me to show
Hmm.
me what you need to know next. And it's amazing, like how many times I almost even didn't even know I had a question, but then I saw something or I listened to a video and it was actually the thing that was either subconsciously or even consciously like preventing me from a greater understanding. So everything kept unraveling for me in perfect time, and it still is. It still is.
And then, okay, so I'm deviating a little bit here because I need a quick clarification from you. I will tell you a small story as told by, as I remember, by from Osho Rajneesh. So what happens is
Hmm.
a monk, a Buddhist monk, is doing his meditation. He wakes up before sunrise. He does his meditation, and then he walks into the village to beg for alms, right? And then he hears a faint noise from a well which doesn't have those, guardrails, so it looks like somebody has fallen down. So he takes his
Yeah.
clothes and puts it to that, and he helps that guy to come out of the well, thinking that
Okay.
maybe in the dark night, maybe he has fallen down in the well. And that guy comes out holding the clothes of this monk, and then he thanks, and then he runs away into the forest. Then this monk goes to the village for his alms, and then everybody used to respect him and give him some food. But that day, all the villagers are mad at him. I said like nobody is like they're not respecting him, and they're not giving any food. And also he asked somebody like, hey, what happened? Like till yesterday you are all like giving me food, and then I was helping me to do meditation in the rainy season. But then why are you all mad at me? Then one one of the villagers says, um, there used to be a thief who used to come to our village and pillage the village and destroy and steal and kill and rape and do all bad things, and used to escape every single time. But this time he came, but we caught him. But we don't want to kill him. But then we thought, okay, at least let us throw it in the well, so that whether he most probably he will die. But then
Right.
you have helped him to come out. So he has gone to the forest, and then he will come back soon when he gets healthy, and then he's going to destroy all of us. He's going to kill and murder and burn the whole village, and you are responsible for this. This is a Osho Rajneesh story I've read like 25 years
Yeah.
ago. And
Okay.
before I help somebody, like if I give $10 to somebody in the street, what if he drinks alcohol and then jumps from a building, right? So I don't know. So how can you say that whatever you want to listen is only the good thing you are listening? Like, are you sure? Or how can you be sure of this?
What do you mean? Like in terms of life in general? Like
Yeah, yeah. So how
in
can you
terms of
trust life? What if,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
it's actually more of it's something that you just feel inside. Honestly, it's like a heart thing. Like you feel it in your heart, and it's not something that the mind is going to be able to rationalize. Like you're not going to be able to think your way into trusting, because the mind, um, I would say in general, is not trusting. Like the mind is actually at its best when it's in conflict with something. Like it needs something to be other.
I
It
see.
the mind the mind actually needs life to be other than it is for it to be in its prime like operation. Like
Wow.
it needs to achieve something other than whatever already is. So if you're going to try to rationalize this trust with your mind, you're never going to get there, because you're caught within that conflict that is what the mind is. So it's something more of you, and it probably happened when I had that moment of like clarity, where I felt like there was no control. So you have to have that moment that you understand there is nothing to control. So if you know that you're not able to control life, then what alternative do you have other than to trust it? Like that's the only alternative if you're going to be at peace. If you want peace and you're not able to control something, you have to trust in it. And like I
O-
said, it's more of a feeling from your heart that this is right. This is the way that everything has to be, because there's no other way for it to be.
okay. So now, William, a very basic and fundamental question. See, now we all we always make decisions about the future and do the mind, right? makes decisions about the future, about our insurance, about our salary, about our savings, and about how our wife should behave with us, our kids should behave with us, right? So we have a mental model, and we work hard to fulfill that, right? If I'm expected to be at my workplace at 9 o'clock, I don't have a choice to say, okay, it can happen, it cannot happen, right? I'm surely should be there, right? So, uh, which one will you accept and which one will you not accept? In the sense, see, there are a few things I should work hard to change, right? If I want to write some software is not going to write itself. I have to really deliberately sit and be disciplined and not be disturbed, and sacrifice many other things, and then sit and create that software which I'm supposed to do by the end of this week, right? So I want to know, where do you accept and where do you don't accept?
Yeah, the difficult thing is when you have the belief that this mind is who I am. Like, the difficulty is that that mind is the conflict. So from that standpoint, from that point of perception, it seems like it's very confusing because you're taking ownership over all of the actions. Now, when my mind became quiet, I didn't have that inner dialogue that was questioning, do I need to go to work? Do I need to work on this project? You know, can I let this one go? Do I need to work 80 hours this week? Like, when do I accept that? When do I say that that's not acceptable?
Yeah.
The mind is going to debate that over and over and over, because that's what the mind does. The mind is the conflict of not knowing what to do. So when my mind became quiet, you have more of an understanding that there's something else that's guiding you. There's more of an intuition that's available, that the decisions almost happen on their own for you. Like, I don't feel like I'm making any choices. I don't feel like I'm making any decisions. Like, I feel like life is a unitive existence, and everything is moving everything. So there's no individual making any individual choice. And go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't want to just keep
No,
explaining.
no, no. You keep good. I have a question, but I'll only ask it after your
Okay.
flow. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So the difficult thing for people to understand and grasp is that the mind doesn't really know what's best. Like like my mind, like my mind had all that anxiety. I just wanted to get rid of the anxiety. Like, I thought it was the worst thing I ever could possibly have had, like to have
Yeah.
a voice in my head that I just could not bear.
Mhm.
But what ended up happening is that voice that I couldn't bear brought me to this complete understanding of complete peace and like love and like joy. So even though I thought that that was like the wrong thing for me, it was showing me the right way.
Okay. Hmm. So it's a blessing in disguise.
Exactly. And that's what people can't, like, you can't really grasp that until something shows you. And that's why I said it's more of a heart thing, that when you have something like that happen to you and you let go, like a lot of people like will have an awakening through some type of tragedy where, you know,
Yeah.
somebody dies, or, you
Hmm.
know, some type of illness that they get. And that's when they can finally let go of the idea that they're in charge, and like they need to decide what to do, what decisions to make. And that's when they kind of surrender to that something is guiding them, and you can trust when you know that there's no alternative other than to trust.
Okay, William. So w- whatever this thing you're saying is guiding, you can trust it. Can you speak more about that thing? please?
Yeah, that thing probably has many names, many forms. You know, you want to call
Wow.
it God, you want to call it
Okay.
God, you want to call it source, you want to call it truth, you want to call it Buddha nature.
Hmm.
It's all the same thing. It's same thing in many different ideas, many different forms. So for me to kind of give you an explanation of like what that is, like the only understanding that you have of that is to be that. Like it cannot be really conveyed to somebody with words.
Hmm.
I try the best I can. That's what I do with my tweets.
Okay.
And I try to give some understanding of what that is and what that feels like, to completely trust that that this life is beautiful the way that it is. Like even though there's so many problems in the world and
Yeah.
everybody, you know, just shakes their head at everything and just can't believe what's happening, but there is an underlying like beauty to all of it. And the thing that you have to understand is what you see is this dualistic world, that you're looking at it through the lens of the dualistic mind, and you're seeing all the, you know, the good, the bad, you know, the hate. But for the good to exist, the bad has to be there. It's just, that's the way that it is. There's no way that you can just have good in life, because that good is only there because the bad is there. So that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is the balance that is inherent in the duality, and the peace and the love and the joy is to actually understand that you are beyond that dualistic mind, and that's not actually who you are. You're actually the love, the joy that's aware of that life that's moving, and that's not something that you're not stuck within that dualistic mind that thinks that this is all there is, and is keeps trying to get away from the bad things and keeps looking to get to the good things. Like that's not actually what the experience is supposed to be.
Okay. So the mind is dualistic, and you also said there is a holistic moving life which is full of love and joy. So if you are not a dualistic mind, then you are that inexplainable love, joy, moving life. Is it?
You're the awareness in which that life is actually moving, and that is the love and the joy is expressed out of that.
Okay. So I am the awareness in which this love and joy and the whole moving life is happening. And it also has the dualistic mind.
Yes, and that actually comes, if you I know that you've read Krishnamurti,
Yeah.
when he says the observer is the observed. Like
Yeah.
you who think that you're the subject looking at objects is actually just another object.
Yeah.
You're actually beyond even the idea of that individual who is perceiving life. You know, even the individual that thinks he's aware of what's happening in life, there's actually another awareness of that individual that thinks that he's aware. So there's like another, and then actually, if you want to even go even deeper, you can actually say that there's no layers whatsoever. There's not even, there's nothing.
Sorry, there is no whatsoever. What you said? Can you repeat that?
There's no, there's no layers whatsoever, because you can say God is absolute. Like there's nothing that can perceive itself in the absolute state.
Yeah. Right.
And that's actually kind of what the reality is.
Okay. So there is this. I'm trying to get a better understanding and
Sure.
understand the relationship. So there is something called absolute, and awareness and dualistic mind. Is this what is the relationship between the absolute and the awareness?
Well, you can like I think the way that it's been portrayed is you can call it awareness and then pure awareness. Like awareness is the individual that believes that they're aware, or actually, yeah, it's the individual that believes that they're aware, and
Yeah,
you can be aware of something, aware of,
like this table.
yeah, there's an
Okay.
awareness,
Yeah,
but there's an awareness that is aware of that awareness, and you can call that God or source or self or whatever label you
absolute
want to give
also.
to it. Yeah.
Absolute also.
Yes.
Okay. So now I using my mind. If somebody asks me, are you aware? I'm going to say yes, I'm aware. And okay, there are two types of awareness. One is even in the human mind, what my sense organs shows. There's light, there's darkness, there's sound, no sound, and all those things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there is an awareness from internal to the body, like hunger and pain of physical body. That is second type of awareness. The third type of awareness, when I'm all alone and thoughts run, right? Somebody insulted me 5 years ago, or I became a champion 10 years ago, or whatever, right? Then I'm aware of those thoughts running like a movie running in a screen. So these three
Right.
awareness I know. And you say all these three awarenesses are of the dualistic mind.
Yes.
Okay, so this I know. See, I know I dreamt yesterday. Actually, interestingly, I vividly recall some part of me fishing yes, in my yesterday's dream. I recall, and I know I have a body and stuff, and I'm also interacting with this physical world using my dualistic mind. See, this much I know. Um, and this has been my life, right? So now you're saying you're bringing me and introducing a new concept of awareness of the awareness, or aware,
Correct.
being aware of awareness. And that awareness is the absolute and love and joy, and that is the wholeness, right? Is what you're saying. So now I'm interested to know, what is this being aware of awareness?
It's not something that I can convey to you like through
Okay.
words.
Okay.
I mean, to understand it is to be it.
Okay.
If I'm like,
Sure.
if I had to say,
Okay. Okay. So one
I know
more
that's probably
thing.
not like that's
No,
not
no.
like that's
But we will go there. So sorry to cut you short there. So then my question is, the
no
only
problem.
way to, you can't convey this awareness, but you can at least tell me, or at least tell me how to facilitate this awareness. And then one of the way I believe that I can know that I'm aware, being aware, is to not like make yourself free for a couple of hours and then sit silence, preferably close your eyes. And then if you stay as witness, then there's a potential for me to approach this awareness. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you think that you need to approach it, then that actually ends up being the barrier because
Okay.
you're already it. So it's more of like a surrendering
Or stay in witness.
to, yeah, if you stay as the witness, that's good,
Okay.
but there has to be some type of realization that I, as the individual, cannot stay as that witness, and at the same time be the witness beyond that. So it has to be a surrendering of the idea of the individual witness. You have to let go of the idea of yourself as being able to hold this awareness. at all. And it's a complete like opening up to the unknown and to just to being something that you know that you cannot know with your mind, and you can't even experience it with like with the mind that's trying to move beyond the initial awareness.
Okay, so the dualistic mind has to understand that um, there is something else to which it has to surrender so that it can get that love and joy and peace, is it?
Yeah, what you have to realize is that the individual has to collapse. Like your individual, like that I thought that I am has to collapse, because that's creating the dualistic aspect of the experience. So as long as you're holding on to that idea that I am or I exist, you're always going to have that dualistic approach or outlook. So and I can't even say that it's something that you have to do, because if I say that you have to do it, then that I is holding on to the belief that it's something that it has to do, and that's perpetuating the I that has to surrender. So for me, what I did is would just keep letting go. Like every time an idea in my mind would come up, even of letting go, like if the idea of letting go would come up, I would let go of that. So it was a consistent, and like I said, the one thing that I can do in my life is to be consistent. So when I had it in my mind that every single thought that came up, that this is something that I needed to do to get to reach, this thing that I'm trying to reach, I would collapse that thought. Like that thought would collapse. No, that's not it. That's and through that, along with having the faith, and I think the faith is a big part of it, because the faith is actually what you are. Like you think that you have faith in something, but you're actually the faith. Like the faith is what you are. When I say source or God or Buddha nature, like when you have faith, it's not having faith in like something outside of yourself. It's having faith that this is all of you and this is all unfolding, and it goes back to the trust, and it's a trust that I can even let go of the idea of who I think I am, and I will be guided and I'm going to be taken care of, and there's nothing for me to fear. There's nothing here for me to lose, because I know in my heart who I am. And like the heart is like the center point of the existence. It's not in your mind. And if you're still in your mind, you're never going to get to that point where you can let go, like into the spaciousness, because the spaciousness is coming like from your heart. It's not coming from your mind. So it's almost like a shift where you no longer have the need for life to be any way other than what it's being unfolded as. And when you have no need left for life to be different, then that mind loses all its power, because it can't force you to do anything anymore, because you know that it's powerless. And when that mind is powerless, that I thought that you think you were collapses, and then there's no I left. And then that's when you're just there as that complete awareness that there's no duality. It's just there. Like it's just the awareness.
Okay, thanks, William. So you are saying the mind has to know to let go, right? So, see, in
Mm-hmm.
the mind or in our awareness, thoughts appear and then we get attached to it. And then we put the role, okay, I'm a father, I should do this. I'm an employee, I should do this. I'm a son to my parents, so I should do like this. And I'm a citizen of this town, a part of this town, I should do this, right? So now The mind is needed for action, for thinking and planning to be functional in the society now. Without the mind, we cannot be functional in the society at all.
Yeah.
Then we are like any other mammal, animal, right? So now, how do I
Mhm.
know where to let go and where to be disciplined and work hard? Like if there's a child in the middle of the street walking, then obviously you will leave everything and go and help the child. Makes sense. Even a monkey will do the same thing. Even any other mammal
Yeah.
will do the same thing. So so we get lots of thoughts every day, right? Like thousands of thoughts from morning till evening. So how will you know which thought to let go and which thought to pursue and do action in a disciplined way?
Yeah. If you, the thing is, if you think that you're in control of it, you're never going to get beyond it. Like if you think that you can control which thoughts, I can keep this thought and I can let go of that thought. And if you're going to take that approach,
Mhm.
you're never going to get beyond it, because what the mind is the choice. Like, how can you give up choice by making choice? So what ends up happening is, if you get beyond that idea,
Mhm.
things will just happen. Like, whatever you need to do is going to happen. Like, whatever thought is going to arise that you need to listen to, it'll show up for you. But to get to that point, you can't be the decider of the thoughts. If you hold on to that idea that you can control which thoughts to follow, you're not going to be able to get free of them, because you're already there as that thought. So that's where part of the trust comes in, that if I trust that I do surrender, that what I need is going to show up for me at that point in time. And then that's when you start to gain, like, the subtleness of the practice of, I understand which of these thoughts are just nonsense and I don't need to listen to them. But to get to that point, you have to surrender to something greater than yourself, because it's all about control. The mind wants to retain that control, and when it still has it, you can't decide which thoughts are good and which thoughts are bad, which because you're caught within it. So it's very subtle, and it becomes like an intuitive knowing that you'll know which thoughts to listen to and which thoughts, like, there will be something inside of you, and it goes back to the heart, where this feels right. And that's what I did with my practice. What felt right to me is what I went with. Like, if something's too much effort, then it's not for you. Like, if you're trying to do like a spiritual practice, and something that you're trying to, like, work on, it's
Yeah.
just like bothering you, and you can't get past it, then that's not for you. Then you just let go of that. And then it almost becomes like, and I think it was Alan Watts that said something about, it's more of like sailing. Like, you're sailing a boat, you just catch the wind, whichever way the wind wants to move, you move with it. You're not going to try to row against the wind when you have a sail that's moving you. You also have to drop your idea of what you expect life to be. Like, if you have this narrow vision of what your life is supposed to be, and that's the only thing that you're interested in, and you're going to do whatever you can just to get to that one point, like, you want to become a millionaire.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep that narrow perspective, that may not be how your life was intended to move. So you're going to feel like a lot of effort, and things are going to go wrong, and you're going to be working like 80-hour weeks, and it's just going to be exhaustive. And it goes back to the same thing that I had with my anxiety. Like, my idea was I needed to control my life. Like, that was my thing. I needed to plan. Like, I was a big planner. Everything had to be planned out. And when I was doing that, it was exhausting. Like,
Hmm.
trying to control everything, it was completely exhausting. And I'm sure that a lot of people in their lives are exhausted. Like, life is exhausting. Like, raising a family is exhausting. Going to work is exhausting. And the reason why I think it feels exhausting is because you're trying to control it and you have all that mental energy that is churning like every day, worrying about are you going to have enough, like, are you going to have enough money, are you going to have enough time to do what you want to do, like, is your health going to be okay? It's exhausting because you believe that you're in control and you can do something to move life, like you have to do something to move life the way that you need to move it, instead of trusting that life is going to give you what you need when you need it. Like, it's very hard for the mind to let go of that idea, just because we've been conditioned so much into believing that we're the ones that need to make all the right decisions, and if you make the wrong decisions, you're going to get in trouble. Like, your life is not going to work out.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is we make those wrong decisions because we're trying to control things, and that difficulty that we run into is trying to let us know that it's not something that you can control. And that's why I said, when people have these tragedies, that's when they let go. Like, that's when they're able to sail instead of trying to row against the wind. But it's
Okay.
difficult.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's easy, because how do you surrender to something in trust when you don't have any proof? Like, where's the proof?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's why people mostly surrender after the fact. After they've had that somebody die or somebody get sick. But you can understand this a lot better if you understand your mind a lot better. Like, if you understand,
Yeah.
you're not making these choices. You're not making these choices out of your point in time that you're at. You're making these choices out of every moment prior to your life, like to this point in time. Everything from your childhood up until now is making those choices. Like, you're not a person now. You're a person stretching back to when you were a child. Like, when you were a child, that person is still making the choice right now. Whatever that effect that child went through is still choosing. And that was something that I actually realized, and I don't think I said it yet, but with my anxiety, a lot of it had to do with like my childhood. Like, I had some issues with shame, some issues with shame from when I was like a kid. And I finally realized that actually only after I got divorced. After I got divorced, I realized that there was still this conditioned like fear of embarrassment, of like still some control. And it was like more of a subconscious thing at that point, because I had gone through a lot of my spirituality already, but there was still something hidden there that I wasn't even aware of. So you have to realize that when you look at your mind, you're not looking at this point in time. You're looking at the whole period of time up until now. So do you trust like the child that was injured, or like, that the mind that went through something that was scarred, like that child is still making these decisions? So that's why you may have anxiety. That's why you may have depression. That's why you may have fears, and like fear of death, and all these things that are going through your mind right now that you're trying to control. The decisions that you're making with that mind are not clean decisions. Those are decisions that are shadowed by everything that you've gone through in your past. So once you understand that this is not, like, I actually think I was thinking of this earlier. It's like you're trying to make a clear choice, but the object that's trying to make the choice is not clear. It's distorted. Like, you can't make a clear choice through a distorted lens. Like, you're trying to look through life and this lens is completely distorted. So how can you make the right choice that way? Like, it's impossible. It's impossible to make all the right choices in your life. And then that's when you turn into the suffering, the suffering that you exist as is because you're trying to make those choices through a distorted lens. It's impossible.
Okay, see, you can say the mind is a disaltered or a blunt and inefficient tool, but then that's the only one we have. So we have to live with it.
Well, you have it, you have it, but it doesn't need to be distorted. You can let go of the distortion, and then there's a clarity when you understand that this conditioning, who I think I am, this conditioned individual, is not actually who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And this gets to the idea of duality, or like, are you gonna be the individual, or are you gonna be life moving as a unit of movement? Like, what are you? Like, until you know who you are, you can't make the right decision. Like, the mind it's a good tool, but the psychological mind is what distorts the tool. Like, you have to look past the psychological aspect of mind and allow the intellect to function without that conditioned distortion, really. Like, you
Sarika.
already have an innate like goodness to you. Like, everybody's good. Even these individuals who do like these very bad things,
Yeah.
those things are coming through the mind. Those poor actions that people do, that people make, are of the mind. Like, there's an innate goodness in every person. So if you're trying to determine, like, if I let go of my mind, how am I going to function? Like, you're still going to have the intellect still works. The only thing you're really dropping is the psychological idea of who you think you are.
Okay. One question. See, initially you said there is an innate goodness in humans. But if we believe that we are all from monkeys and we are evolved from other animals, see, there is no innate goodness in any of the animals. They all fight to survive. Like, I've seen so many monkey videos where everybody snatches and puts in their mouth so much, then they don't even give for other small monkeys, right? And even
Yeah.
any other animal you see, it's always like selfish and survival, and very very rarely helping others, very very
Mm-hmm.
rarely. By default, they're all selfish. Like, uh, I agree, at least the fishes and the reptilian, they are surely selfish. They don't even have a social life. But at least in mammals, where the social life is evolved, monkeys and zebras and all those things, right? They always want to protect themselves, at maximum their children, maximum, right? They have some love and affection because maybe they're attached because they give milk to them for a few months, right? So other than their own children, they don't care for, I mean, they want to be protected by the tribe, but then they don't, like, help, and there's no innate goodness. So why do you say only humans has got this innate goodness?
I think it stems from that, what we were talking about earlier, is that ability to know yourself as something greater than this being here. And it goes back to the awareness. Like, everybody, I'm sure like a lot of people have had a moment of awareness, like an experience of a moment of peace, whether you're looking at a piece of art, or listening to music, a piece of music, or being out in nature somewhere, you're by a mountain, or you hear the ocean breaking. There's something that just speaks to you inside. And that's what I'm referring to. It's the inner goodness of, and that, like I said, you can call it God, or truth, or Buddha nature, like whatever you want to call it. it's there, and everybody, even if it's maybe one time, like you have some type of memory of when it's actually when you're not there as the individual, when you're listening to that piece of music and you forget that you're even there, or you're watching, watching some movie where you forget the idea that you're even watching. That's the awareness that you're actually the awareness of everything that's moving. You're not the individual, you're not the body, you're not the mind. So the human has the ability to go to that spaciousness and understand that this is who I am. But the problem is that we're so conditioned into thinking that we're the mind, that that moment passes, and after that moment passes, we're back into the idea of the individual. So like that's the advantage that the human has, is they can get in touch with that self-awareness of something greater than themselves. Like this idea of who they are is not actually who they are. It's something greater than that. So the animal does not have that ability. So that's kind of the differentiating factor.
Oh, okay. So do you believe in the physical world of Big Bang and the animal world of evolution? Do you believe okay, specifically, do you believe in evolution? That there was fishes and then it evolved into amphibians and reptiles and mammals and then humans with language and consciousness. Sorry,
Yeah,
with language. You believe that?
I would say yes, but I'm not going to say I'm 100% sure because there's no way for me to know. Like,
I know.
I mean, it makes sense.
Okay, so that's what you. It's not that a God created this world and do you subscribe to that or this? That's what I want to know.
Well, if you're getting to the idea of like creation, then it's hard for me to give an answer on that, because like then you can say, well, who's the creator of the
Yeah.
creator? Like at that point, like
Yeah.
it's kind of it's an unanswerable question. I mean, to me, what I did is I just let go of those questions. Like anything like that is something that would just keep me in my mind.
Hmm.
So as long as I know what I am, like I know this this is what I am. I'm this entirety. Like I'm the entire movement of life. Like I'm all of this. So when I know that, then I don't have a small question in my mind that needs an answer to anything.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, like when I understand that I am this entire consciousness, I'm the entire movement of the world, of everything. Everything's moving within me as this greater awareness. Then the idea like that the mind has a simple question about like the origin of creation, to me is like meaningless. Like what does
Mhm.
that mean to me if I know that I'm all that is? It's just a question. Like, and
Okay.
the thing is that the mind gets caught sometimes on trying to find answers to these things. And as long as you want an answer, you're never going to get beyond that mind that wants the answer.
Okay. Now you are saying everything is moving within me and I am all that is. These are all profound statements. And then, I mean, this also may be partially blasphemous statement.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot a lot of groups will have a problem with that.
Okay. But then
Man,
yeah.
when I say that, I don't mean that personally, obviously. Like that's not me saying that I am the individual like in which everything's moving. Like it's just it's everything is one. Like, and I'm that, like I'm the part of that. Like as this individual here, like I'm playing the role of this individual as part of that greater entity. I don't have this God complex where I think that I'm it. I'm very simple. I'm very basic.
Right. But William can only know what is in his mind, right? When you say everything is moving within me, see, you don't know what is in another continent, what is moving in another continent, right? So how do you say everything is
Mhm.
moving within me? How can you make that statement?
It's something that you have to experience. It's not something that can
Okay.
be conveyed in words.
Hmm.
You feel like a unity with everything. Like it's just this great spaciousness that you feel that this is what I am, and it's not something that you can explain to somebody. They have to experience it on their own.
Okay. Uh, See, you're also saying there is spaciousness, and then everything is moving within me. This itself, I agree. Like, I have to experience this, then only I will know. But then, for a dualistic mind, this itself looks contradictory, right? Spaciousness and everything in spaciousness,
Mhm.
right?
Well, there's you have duality, and then you have non-duality,
Hmm.
and then you actually have like just forget
Both.
duality or non-duality, and then there's just, well, yeah. So it's not that you have to either be dualistic or non-dualistic.
Hmm.
They're happening together. I don't know if that does that make sense.
No, it is like, darkness and light are at the same time. How can it be?
Well, because the mind needs both sides, so you have to step beyond that dualistic mind to understand. And that's why I say that the mind's not going to be able to comprehend it.
Okay.
You have to be it. You have to understand that this is what I am.
Okay. So
And the way to
now,
understand that this is and the way to understand this is what I am is to let go of the idea of what I think I am. And that's where we were talking earlier about dropping the I, that I thought.
okay. Now basic, this is a definition question. What is a dualistic mind?
Dualistic mind is just the play of interrelated opposites. It's you can't have tall without short. Like you need both of those for either one to exist. Like if you just had tall people, it wouldn't make any sense if there were no short people. And that's just the way that the mind sees life, is through opposites, really. That's how existence is seen through the mind's perception.
So this is a quality of the mind to see in opposites. This is dualistic mind.
Yeah.
See opposites. Okay. You know what I thought? Um, non-duality means that non-separation, that I am separate from this universe. So there's a duality, is what I thought.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's what non-duality is when there's no distinction left. But the distinction is made up of opposites.
Oh, okay,
Like
okay, okay. So
if there's no me, if there's no me, then there's no you.
okay,
And
so yeah.
that's why the I thought is so important, because when that I thought arises, that this is me, then that's when the duality is created from that I thought, because then that's when the other is created. So it's just a thought that's creating the entire dualistic experience. And
Okay,
that's
so
why if you drop that I thought, that I exist as this individual, the duality collapses because you're no longer there as that individual.
okay, I just remembered Hisin Ming's book from Osho Rajneesh. The first statement in that book, it says, one second, let me see if I can get that book somewhere here. Um, yeah, the first sentence in this book, Hisin Ming, is the great way is not too difficult for those who have no preferences. Let go of longing and aversion, and it reveals
Yeah.
itself. Make the smallest distinction, however, and you are far from it as heaven is from earth. And if you want to realize the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Like and
It's
dislike is the disease
it's
of the
kind of,
mind. Like this is summarizing whatever you are saying.
yeah. Yeah, you basically just like, if for what I've been talking about for, I don't know how many minutes we've been talking, but that's basically a good summary of everything.
Yeah.
Actually, I've read that book. It's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So mind always sees the opposite. So the opposites is good and bad. And just can you please give me a simple example about mind seeing something as good and bad?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I think it was Ramesh Balsekar who said it. For you to have a Buddha or a Jesus, for either of them to exist the way that they do, you need to have a Hitler. Like that's the opposite. If you know what I mean? Like the Buddha, like for the Buddha to exist as he does, somebody like a Hitler has to exist as they do. Like you cannot have a one-sided experience where everything is just good. You can't, because it just wouldn't exist. The idea of goodness would not even exist without something that was bad.
Is it always so? See, if I'm hungry, I have to eat. So where is bad here? So me eating is a good thing. So where is bad here?
The bad is that you were hungry.
Hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
it's not always. I don't know if you can always like go good to bad with every single thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
tall and short. Is tall good? Is bad short? Like, I don't know. Like you may prefer being short, so there's no good or bad there, but it's an opposite. So you can't say that everything is either good or bad. Some things are just opposite.
Hmm. Like lacking, right? So there is light and there's lack of light. So it doesn't mean it depends. So what is the problem with this dualistic mind? Or because of what the dualistic mind is a problem?
The dualistic mind is never satisfied, I would say. It
Mm-hmm.
always wants something. It wants something other than what is. So there's always a sense of suffering that whatever is here is not good enough, and something has to be better than this.
Okay, so the mind can never know peace then.
You can't. It can't.
It-
Like honestly. Like that, the dualistic mind will never know peace because it has to move to something else for it to exist. Like even somebody that has like $1 billion will want $10 billion, like through that mind.
Not only that, even for the richest guy in this world, maybe a neighbor's wife will be more beautiful.
Yeah,
Right? And some
there's
neighbor is a better
always,
painter.
yep, there's always somebody always is better in some way. There's no way
Even
just,
correct. No, no. Even in one way, if you're best in the world, there's like a million other ways where somebody else is better than you.
yes, without a doubt, without a doubt. And that's how the mind operates. It will move to that next thing that it needs to go to.
And why can't the mind accept, okay, I'm not the richest guy, so be it. I'm not the best painter in the world, so be it. Why can't the mind accept it?
I think just because of the conditioning that you've grown. What were you conditioned to do as a child? Like to progress, to get better, to be good.
Okay. Um, fine. So let us assume you are living in a totalitarian society, like Soviet Russia, where everything, like even your shoe size is decided by somebody else, and then you don't have religious freedom, like most of those freedom, right? So in that sort of totalitarian society, right, then you are forced or expected, sorry, not expected, you are forced to do such thing. Like if you are a factory worker doing some work, you are supposed to do it because the government says so, right? So
Yeah,
you don't have much freedom. So in that scenario, you are supposed to have a dualistic mind, and you are forced to do those actions whether you like it or not. So in that society, how are you going to have some sanity?
you're not. You're
Oh,
you're go-
so
you're
so
gonna want to
then
be out of. You're gonna want to be out of that. You want freedom. Like your mind basically wants the opposite of whatever it has.
okay.
Like if somebody's telling you can't do something, then you want to do it. Like if they're telling you that you don't have freedom, then you want freedom.
No, okay. So but in a totalitarian world, the solution is to run away out of those sort of society. Is that the way to escape?
So I guess that's the only choice really that you have.
I see.
Otherwise, you're just going to stay there and suffer because the mind doesn't want somebody to tell it what to do. Like when somebody tells you what to do, like your initial reaction is really kind of, especially when you're forced without a choice, is you don't really want to do that. I don't want to be forced to do that. And that's the mind like moving to something other than what is.
Okay. Another general question. There is 7 billion people, doesn't and looks like there's only few thousand people who have understood how the mind functions and stop fighting with it and accept the universal flow.
Mhm.
Why is then there's so much suffering with billions of people every single day?
It's just because the mind is continuing to perpetuate the conditioning, and it's I can't say it's a slow process or it's a fast process. I can't really judge that. Like I can't say when. Like I don't know if you're talking about like evolution. Like is this evolving to a higher state of consciousness? Maybe that's why things are getting so difficult for everybody right now.
Okay.
It just seems like everything's like falling into chaos, like around the world, really. But then that's getting to the point of like who's behind all of this and who. who is moving life? Like, what is God's idea here? Why is he not allowing everybody to evolve to a higher state of consciousness where they're not stuck in this dualistic mind? Like, I don't have the answer for that, but
Okay, but when you say everything is moving within me and I am all that is, then does it mean that the other people, then what do you think of the other people? Then other people is not within you, and they're so you are a universe and I'm a separate universe, or there is a conflict here.
no, there's the idea of the individual is only happening within that dualistic mind. So when you drop the idea of the dualistic mind, there's no individual. It's just one movement.
But then, oh, okay. So you don't know the other people are suffering then. If you stay as the awareness and as the wholeness and this whole flow of the universe, but then you don't know the other guy is suffering and crying and he want to kill himself and he want to kill others. There's a humongous suffering, right? Why is that you don't know that? Because he's an
You
individual.
do you
Yeah.
do see it. Like I can see when somebody's suffering,
Yeah.
but I also know that that's part of the dualistic experience. That's why he's suffering in that dualistic idea that he is the individual.
So then your only solution for to remove his suffering is you telling him that you are not an individual.
I mean, that's not going to come across very well to try to
Yeah.
help somebody.
Yeah.
I go, well, why are you suffering? You know, you don't exist the way that you
Yeah.
think you do. So, yeah.
But that's the final solution anyway for anybody.
I mean, that is the final solution, to see that you don't exist as this individual, because you see that life is not happening to you. You're a movement within you. Your life moving in its totality, and you're the awareness of that totality moving. You don't exist as the individual.
Okay, so you are having
And
this.
that's go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I've been
Okay, so
talking a lot, so you go ahead.
no. I mean, I'm here to listen only. So you are saying you are the awareness of totality moving.
Yes.
What do you
And
mean
that's
by that?
by dropping the idea of the dualistic mind. When everything falls away and you're just looking, and it sounds very complicated. It sounds like, oh my God, like, how did you figure that out? How did you understand that you're all that is? And it's actually the most simple thing, by just realizing that the mind is the only thing that is splitting life up into pieces, into objects. And when the mind is quiet and everything's still, there are no objects. Like, even though, like, you're looking at them and you see all these things, you think that they're separate, but the only separation comes from when that mind comes in and creates this distinction of this object, that object. But that's actually just an idea that's happening within the mind. So when you drop that mind and you just allow life to be as it is, without like breaking it up into pieces, you become one with it. You feel this unity, and it's more of an understanding that you have to experience intuitively by letting go of everything. And that's why I say it's the most simple thing, is it's letting go of everything, just to the most subtle simplicity of, there's not even anything in my mind whatsoever. It's a complete emptiness. And that's the emptiness of, there's nothing that's separate from this emptiness. Is just there, and it's not broken into any pieces, because the mind's not there to break it up. And it's utterly simplistic, and that's why I always say I'm a very simple person. And even though I add person there, it's more of like I'm just an utter simplicity.
And emptiness.
Yes.
So you are that emptiness. You identify with the emptiness.
Yes. And then I can interact as the individual as I need to. Like, I understand that this is a role that I'm playing within the consciousness. So that doesn't disappear. It's not like you become blank and you have no mind and you're just like this blankness floating out there. You're still here as the individual, like however you need to.
But who decides this existence of the individual?
It gets back to God or source or.
Okay, but see, when you are in the society and interacting with the society, then you are that dualistic mind, right?
You understand that the dualistic mind is there
And interacting.
within you as the awareness. So it's a twofold. Shunryu Suzuki said it's a twofold reality. Like you're there
Okay.
as the individual, but you're also there as the awareness at the same time.
At the same time.
And you can slide between points of perception. Like when you're watching a movie, you can sit there as the individual watching a movie.
Yeah.
And then you can fade back and be aware of the individual watching a movie.
Okay. So you are that emptiness, awareness, wholeness, peace, and love. And in that emptiness, this mental images form, and then you take a role, and then you interact. See, if you say there is ice and there's an ocean, ice has got a form, but it is also water. But when there is ice, there is no water. But then when there is water, there's no ice. Only one of those two exists at the same time. At the same time, but at different times, different things exist. So if you tell me by default I'm awareness, but then thought comes, then I'm engaged, I'm attached or engaged or involved inside the thoughts, and then I do the actions, and then when the action is completed, then I go back to my emptiness and awareness and peace. At least if you say that, it makes sense to me, right? But then if you
Because
say I'm both at the same time, that is what I'm not understanding.
yeah, well, I think it comes to the point of trying to look at it through the dualistic lens of interrelated opposites. Like when you're looking through
Okay.
that lens of opposites, you want the opposite. You only want you can't have good and bad at the same time.
Okay.
You're either doing something good or you're doing something bad.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a step beyond that. You're stepping
Okay.
outside of the dualistic mind.
Okay. So when you're stepped outside your dualistic mind, then how do you come back to the dualistic mind?
It's there as a tool for you to use.
For the emptiness to use.
Yeah.
For the wholeness to
No,
use.
for the wholeness to use. I wouldn't say the emptiness to use. And you can really boil it all down to, and I don't really like to use the word God, but
Yeah.
it's an expression. It's an expression. Everything's an expression of that same source. Like it's all one. We try to break it up into all these little components, but in essence, it's one. It's one flow.
Okay.
It's flowing out of that source, and it is that source. Like it is that source. It's the same thing. There's no separation.
Okay. So is the source made up of this physical universe? Or do you think this physical universe or the source is manufacturing and changing this physical universe?
This is part of the source expressing itself as the universe.
Physical universe.
Yeah.
See, if you look at this expanse, right, we know only little bit. We are a small dot, that pale blue dot in this universe. So the source, okay, the source is everything. Then,
Yeah. You call it source, call it truth, call it love, call it God, whatever you want to call it. It's all of that. It's an expression of all of that.
okay, and then you are a dualistic mind also, but then are you the source?
Everything is the source, but
You
the
are
source
part
is
of the source.
also, yeah, part of
No,
the
no, no.
source expressing itself.
See,
The source.
yeah, go ahead.
See, the thing that you get caught up in is like you want to put like a dualistic spin on it. Like, where's the source,
Yeah.
and then what are you coming out of the source? Like, there's always this idea of something has to come from something. Like, it has to come from somewhere, but that's not really the way that it feels. Like, when you're actually it just feels like everything is just here. It's just here, and this is where you get to like the idea of the absolute, like not even being able to know itself, but it can be itself, because it can't even look at itself if it's absolute.
Yeah.
Because that would create a duality. So it's completely without dualistic properties. But you have to be it to know it. You can't know it and know it at the same, and you can't know it to know it, because
Okay.
that creates that dualistic idea.
So I have to be it to know it.
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to convey to somebody, because they, the mind wants to know. They want a path to it. Like, show me how to get there. What do I need to do? What practice do I need to do? But you're already it. Like, how can I show you how to get to something that you're already there?
Yeah. And even if a simple thing as simple as a taste of sugar or salt cannot be conveyed, or cannot be conveyed in words, how can we make somebody to taste sugar or salt?
Yeah,
It's such a
it's
trivial thing,
exactly
right?
it's exactly it though. That's exactly the same thing.
Right. And then and testing is a very basic thing. We do it every day, and even that we cannot make others to taste on our behalf. He himself has to taste it and then know it inside his mind, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
understand that few things cannot be, like, that too with words, right? Words are just representations and neurological signals which creates mental model in the brain. It doesn't have any reality. The words per se doesn't have reality. Right? And then
it's true.
using words, we are trying to know this reality. So it is
Yeah,
challenging.
you're creating all these concepts, and
Yeah.
creating the concepts are pulling you out of actual pulling you out of the reality in actuality.
But there's no other way. This way could be inefficient, may not be perfect, but then this sort of discussion and listening is the only way for
Yeah.
people to know, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, it's the only way.
Yeah. Okay.